So today's event is the first in a series called Startup Series, where we'll be putting together a few events, both virtual and in person in London. And we'll be walking through different stages of a startup and exploring the journeys that Muslim entrepreneurs have taken. There'll be insights from entrepreneurs that are working on their own startups and businesses, as well as experts and professionals that can help guide you into taking your idea and converting it into a business and giving you the inspiration that you want to build a business from scratch. Today, of course, we have Amir Anzur, the co-founder of Aartec. He'll be helping us find our idea and see how we can generate ideas. Amir is an internet entrepreneur, and his software has been used by all the big boys, including Samsung, Amazon, Microsoft, and Xbox. For those who have joined us for the first time today, welcome. We are Muslamic Makers. We're a community of Muslim change makers that help each other level up across the tech industry and beyond. We do this mostly through networking, through upskilling and knowledge sharing. We also put on regular events like we are today, both hybrid, in-person and virtual events. If you have any feedback for today's event, please do send it over to our team at team@muslamicmakers.com. Remember to follow us on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook. We also have a dedicated Slack channel where we have a thriving community talking about everything tech. Please do check that out. Details are on the website. Just head over to muslamicmakers.com. You'll see a link to join the Slack channel. So I'll hand it over to Amir now, who is going to run today's event, and he'll be speaking about finding your idea.
Sure, put myself on video. Hi, everyone. This is Amir Anzur. So looking forward to speaking to you about generating an idea for your business or your idea for bringing it to market. And then secondly, more importantly, the mindset of being an internet entrepreneur and bringing these ideas to market. I find that a lot of people have the ideas to bring to market, but where they lack is actually the mindset of an internet entrepreneur and how you can get through the rough times and the good times that'll come ahead. So let me just share some slides. And what I do want to do is have a bit of interaction later on in the as I speak. So it will be useful if you have pen and paper or just your screen that you can write out your ideas and thoughts. It's going to be more around the mindset, and we will go through that at a later stage in the presentation. So if I draw out two parallel lines like this, hopefully you can see my slides right side.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, so if I draw out two parallel slides like this, they end up in a certain place over time. But if I change the direction of one line slightly, it'll end up in a completely different place over time, right? And what I hope that today's presentation will be one of those times in your life where it'll enable you to make a slight change so that in 3 months' time or 6 months or a year from now, you'll end up in a completely different place and hopefully take your idea that you have and take it to another destination, so that instead of just sitting on an idea or a business, you end up in a completely different and better place. Then I'd like to follow up with this caution that advice is free and easy to give, right? But not all advice is for everyone. Everyone has their own path to take. So even listening to Elon Musk is not necessarily the best route for you to take, or listening to Bill Gates or whoever it might be, because they had completely different circumstances to take their business and launch it off the ground. They had different networks, they had different connections. So whenever you're listening to a speaker like myself, take that in mind, that there's no one advice that works for everyone in the economy. You all have to do your own experimentation and create your own map. So a little bit of background about myself. I'm Amir Anzur. I'm an internet entrepreneur. I'm 44 years old. And my first business was when I was about 21 years old, online internet startup when I was 21 years old in 1999. So I've done multiple businesses over that period. Companies like Amazon, Google, Intel have used my software, and I have raised funding for my business. I've bootstrapped. I've had failures in business as well, multiple times where I've had to lay off people, teams. So I've been through around the block quite a bit in this online world. So hopefully I can share with you some knowledge. I am also an author of 2 books, Internetism, How to Create Wealth in the Internet Economy, and Wealthology, Why Some Countries and People Are Rich and How the Others Can Catch Up Faster. And you can get those on Amazon. But basically, I'm a guy with a bit of experience in the corporate world as well as startup world. So the first thing to look into for ideas is that ideas around the world, they travel at a different speed, right? So if you've seen the movie Back to the Future, I know it might be a bit dated now because that was from my time, but essentially the plot is that this kid is able to go back to back in time with a sports almanac, so he knew all the sports scores, and then he was able to bet on sports and make a lot of money for himself, right? So in that same regards, I learned how to travel through time because when I was based in Dublin, Ireland in '99, they were thinking about bringing in the smoking ban indoors. And when I was talking to my Irish friends, they said that'll never happen because us Irish, we love smoking too much. But the smoking ban came indoors, so you could not smoke in bars and cafes in '99 in Ireland. And then in 2009 came to Dubai, then 2014 came to Abu Dhabi. So like in different, and the smoking ban actually began in 1987 in California. So ideas, they come to the world at different speeds. So what, if you are really looking for ideas, start studying things that are happening perhaps in California or Australia, or just travel, or just follow the news and tech news, and you'll start getting ideas for different industries that are happening in different parts of the world. Like the smoking ban, it still hasn't come to some parts of the world, and you can guess the effect that it'll have at a later stage in there. What you'll have to do is create your own map. So when you come up with a business, it is about there's no 2 businesses that are the same. No 2 startups, no 2 charities. I know some of you will want to do something in the nonprofit sector as well. There's no 2 that will have the exact same journey. So you will have to create your own map and be comfortable doing that, to not always feel insecure that I don't know what I'm doing. Should I be doing this? And not always be questioning yourself, but in fact, go out and start creating your own map, saying, well, if I did know what I was doing, what would I do? And then take those steps to make that happen. So be ready to create your own map. And the other thing you need to do is leapfrog. So almost every time someone comes up to me with an idea, they almost always, I tell them, find something on Google of someone else that's doing something similar. So almost every idea you'll come up with, someone in some format is doing it around the world. No matter how unique and how original you think you are, if you really Google search for a couple of days, you'll find someone that's doing it. And that's a good thing, because then it'll give you some confidence that A, your idea makes sense, and then B, you can copy and then edit and then paste. So you can create a better version of that idea. Now that idea It might be that someone in Dubai is doing it and you're based in London, or someone in Oklahoma is doing it in some shape or format. But almost every idea that someone comes up to me with, I always tell them first to research, and research hard, because that will save you a lot of time later on in your development, because someone else is doing it, and you get the user journeys, you get the ideas, you get the text from their copy from their website, you get the frequently asked questions. You can go through and trial their product or service, and then you can make a better version of whatever they've made. And then everything is figure outable. You know, like once you realize that we live in a great era where everything's on Google, everything's on YouTube, and that whatever idea you come up with, you will be able to figure it out, right? So for instance, the second company I started, I had an idea that you could do shopping using SMS using SMS. This was before the time that smartphones were around. And without knowing anything about it, you know, I bought books, I Googled stuff, and I was able to create that software application. And I taught myself to code. In those times, I had to buy a book with 1,008 pages, I remember, that I read cover to cover, and then taught myself to code, and then did everything. Now it's become even easier and easier to do this. Now you could also use websites like Upwork, where you can hire or just simply interview experts in that domain, and then learn how to do things, right? So everything is figure outable. And so don't forget that when you start a company, you're gonna, when you start an idea, you're gonna be questioning yourself, will I be able to do it? I don't know how to raise money. I don't know how to hire software engineers. I don't know how to do testing. I don't know how to scale a company. Everything is figure outable once you take the first steps to starting your journey. Now, the good thing is that information in this economy is worth more than atoms. So things like software or videos or things that you cannot touch and feel, like you know, watches or shoes, they like information is worth more. So what that means is that you can start without investing billions of dollars into a startup, millions of dollars into starting a factory, which you might have had to do 30, 40, 50 years ago if you wanted to bring a new product out to market. Now, because it's all about information-based product or intangible goods, it means that you can create something without having to invest a lot of money into it. So you don't have to invest in a factory or materials to produce your goods. You can simply either teach yourself programming or hire someone to do that and create a brand. Now, brand, the biggest value, if you are creating a business, the biggest asset you can create is the brand. So if you think Michael Jordan, who's a famous basketball player in the US, in 2019 he made 130 million US dollars, which was 16 years since he last played professional basketball. So he was able to create that amount of income because he had created the brand, and the Air Jordans are still selling, right? Tiger Woods, over $1 billion in his career, because every time you saw him, he was wearing a Nike logo. But if you look at where like the shoes are made, they're made in Vietnam or China, in low cost countries, but the brand is what really makes the money. So you should always be thinking about creating your brand and how you can create that brand so that it'll bring you the biggest amount of profit in the long term. And the other thing that you need to think about is becoming an expert. So whatever field that you choose to do, whatever idea that you're going to get into, you can become an expert in that idea, in that field. It's become so easy, or so much easier than it's ever been, because you're going to look at your competitors' websites. You're going to buy 3 to 5 books on Amazon on it. You're going to listen to books on Audible. You're going to listen to a few podcasts, and you become an expert. You're going to go to industry events. And the more of an expert you can make yourself out in that industry, in that field, the better you're going to perform. Now, the unfortunate part is it is becoming more and more competitive. In almost anything you do, there'll be competitors coming up. But if you're an expert, you're always going to be a step ahead of what other people are doing. So remember to think of yourself as an expert, and become an expert in any idea that you give yourself, that you want to pursue. Listen to books. So Audible is a great source, and get your mindset. You're going to have to train your brain to come up with ideas, and come up with ideas for that industry or whatever that you might be interested in. So that your brain is being programmed to be in a much more positive mindset, and more likely to pursue ideas. So here's a chart that I drew over time, and basically on the y-axis it has passion, and on the x-axis it has best in the world. And what I did is, when I was looking to get into multiple businesses, I drew out what was the likelihood that I could be the best in the world in that industry, and then how passionate was I, right? And if you could come to the top right, that would be the best. And the size of the circle is how big do I think that industry is, right? So you guys might have some ideas of what you want to do in as a business, right? So you might have some ideas to say, I want to go into a software for shoe manufacturers. But then you have to say, okay, could I eventually become the best in the world at this? And how big is the size of that industry? Now I'm going to pause for a second. Does anyone have any ideas that they are considering at the moment for their business that they would like, that they would be comfortable in sharing? And to say that I'm thinking about this, and then we can discuss as a group. Okay. Feel free to interrupt me if you feel comfortable, but I will carry on. There will be some other parts that I'm going to pause at, just so that we can do some exercises together.
Sorry to interject, Amir. I think Amina in the text chat said, yes, I do not mind. Amina, is that you want to open up and share your idea?
Amina, do you want to speak, or do you want to just chat? Put it in the chat.
Whatever you're comfortable with.
Yeah, I can speak. I just want to mention it briefly. It's just hopefully for the purpose that I can gain benefit from, obviously, your experience. So I have an idea of like an educational platform, more catered towards like the Muslim community. So you know how we have like Skillshare, for example, for the creative community, and then like Masterclass, sort of like an online learning and teaching platform.
Yeah.
Yeah, the idea is not fully fleshed out, and I just wanted to touch on it briefly, but just wanted to share it if maybe.
Yeah, look, education is one of the biggest circles. If I was to draw that circle here, education is pretty much the is a huge industry to get into, and it's only growing bigger, right? So I think Masterclass was valued at over $1 billion. There's there's Udemy. There's a whole bunch of them. And sometimes when you look at it, you can get overwhelmed because you start looking at it and you go, well, there's so much competition. Where can I fit in? And even when you do some research, you'll find that there'll be competitors in the Muslim niche market as well, right? But you just have to start it and you can do it better, right? So like right now you're still at the early stage, and nothing's going to happen until you take some action and start making that happen. So it's definitely a idea that I can tell that you can be passionate about, but you'll somewhere along the way find your niche to say, okay, it's Muslims, or it's Muslims in Jordan, or you'll find that niche somewhere to do it. And there's a lot of template sites that make that very easy to set up your first version of the website, whether it be using WordPress type software, or Teachable is one of them. You can start that and definitely do that. How would you is it like Skillshare where other people are sharing their ideas and you're monetizing, or how are you going to monetize that?
So it's kind of still in the like ideation. I do want to so I'm kind of into UX design, so I want it to be like that I research and see kind of what people would need first, and then kind of from there decide how it would run. But I wanted it to be kind of like Skillshare and Udemy, where other people make courses, or maybe like masterclass where you get experts in certain industries to make courses, and then you kind of take like a percentage of the course fees, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And you just because there is a master class doesn't mean you can't make an Amina class, right? It's just that American companies, they tend to have the most funding, and they have a lot of backing, which means they spend a lot of advertising. But then, there's going to be a lot of niches that you can get into. Are you based in London, in UK?
Yeah, I'm in the UK.
Yeah, so, and the UK has a great reputation for education globally. So, something that you could start here could well sell in the Middle East as well, right? Where if you're targeting that niche as well.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a good idea. And with venture capitalists look at is how big is the scope of that industry, right? So it's definitely a big scope that you can get into. So what will happen is once you start, it's not like where you'll end up. You might start with a vision, but once you get into it, you might find that there's a particular niche that your users are wanting, and that you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Jazakallah khairan for that.
Okay, thanks. So the other thing that I would say about starting a business or having your idea come about is to embrace serendipity. Now, serendipity, the word, it means the occurrence and development of events by chance in a happy or beneficial way. So basically what happens is when you when you start meeting people and going to events, accidents happen where like it'll push you in the direction of your startup, right? So so just like Amina just spoke out, and now people like Adam is responding to her in the chat and giving her suggestions, because you're doing that serendipity or chances happen that will make your idea come to reality, and people will help you along your journey. So in that same regards, like especially in London, I found Eventbrite and meetup.com. These are great places just to find events to go to. But you might have other social groups that you can go meet people at. Like that could be your nationality, your religion, like it could be like Muslamic Makers is a great community, your school, your university, work, or even activities where you're meeting people of different backgrounds, and they're going to help you along with your ideas. So like you still in the back of your mind, you have your idea, you're not pitching all the time because you might get boring to people, but you have that passion for your idea that you can bring up and people can pitch to, right? And the other thing to realize is that things get easier as you progress in your idea, right? So the first time the first course that you offer, like that Amina might offer, it might not even be valuable, right? Like she might make loss on it. Why? Because the cost to produce that course is so high. The marketing of it was so high. But as you go, as your business progresses, costs come down because you get more and more experienced, right? So there is the compound effect that you need to be aware of, that just don't get disheartened if you bring your idea to market, that people are not tuning in automatically, because over time it gets cheaper and cheaper and things get easier and easier to do in your business. Yes. And so there's an example that they give. If you take 1 cent and you double it every day for one month, so 1 cent becomes 2 cents in day 2, 4 cents in day 3, and 8 cents in day 4. If you keep going, on the 30th day it becomes 5.3 million, and on the 31st day it becomes 10.7 million, right? So like when you have that idea and when you're in the early stages of your idea, you're doing a lot of work and there won't be a lot of benefit, or you won't see a lot of benefit instantly. But bear in mind, as you go through, you'll see a lot more benefit as time passes. Then the idea is to build a team. So when I first started businesses, I was like the CEO, the chief everything officer. And I thought, oh, I have to do the coding, I have to do the website design, I have to do this, that. But what I've learned now over time is it's about building teams together, right? So you will, as you bring your idea to market, how can you bring that team? And now you have to start thinking about that team even before you are ready to execute, because over time you'll find the best developers, or the ones you can afford. You'll find friends that might do barter deals with you and design a logo for free if you buy them lunch or dinner, or give you feedback on that idea. So you have to find your team as you are thinking about your idea. So don't just think, even if I think some of you on the call will be purely software engineers or programmers, that I'm just going to focus on the idea. Think about the team that you'll need to make that idea happen as well. Now, small is also becoming the new big, right? So smaller and smaller companies and individuals you're going to learn to work with those as you go along. It's not necessarily going to be big companies that are going to dominate, but how can you learn to work with smaller agencies or individuals that you might find from Upwork or People Per Hour, or that will help you create your vision quicker and faster. And remember that the world is not priced at all the same, right? So if you go for a haircut in Pakistan, for instance, it's $1. Yeah, a similar haircut in Dubai might cost you $21, and one in Switzerland might cost you $67, right? So different places around the world will charge you a different price for a haircut. But the fact is, Swiss barbers don't make your haircut look 67 times better than Pakistani barbers necessarily. It's just that their rent is more, their salaries are more, so they charge a lot more for that place. And so, for instance, I have a lot of my team in Pakistan, and I can hire a graduate programmer. You can hire a university graduate for about $155, whereas in London, you'd be paying somewhere like $2,700 for a similar graduate. Now, obviously, they have different communication skills and things, but if you can show them how to produce the same level of work, you can start ideas much cheaper than at any other point in history. So if you look at it, an average person in the US is earning about $63,000 a year. An average person in UK is earning about $43,000 a year. Around the world is $11,000, and in the subcontinent it's be about $1,500 a year. So there's different incomes that people are earning around the world, and especially in this post-COVID world, you can take advantage of it. Where why do you necessarily need to have the team all in London or right in your hometown? If you can disperse the work, you can get your ideas done better. Now, this is a picture that I took in Pakistan a few years ago, and it was a bricklayer throwing up a brick to the first floor on a construction site. So basically, he was standing on a bunch of bricks and sending them up on a construction site to the first floor. Now, what this made me realize is why a lot of poverty happens, right? Is because in Europe, you would have a forklift truck that would push all these bricks up in one go, and the job would be done in 15 minutes, whereas that same job took these guys 8 hours, and there was 2 of them, right? And so if you can teach your team like that, you might build in, Kenya or a different place, and you can teach them the tools like Figma for user experience is one tool, for instance, that we're using, and you can tell them to research it. They can produce the same value as someone working in Europe can. So if you can take a team member in a cheaper part of the world and teach them the best tools, you can get to your goals faster. Now, for instance, tools that I use is like having 3 screens on my computer when I'm working, so it's a lot better. I'm a lot more productive in my time all the time, and you always have to be thinking about being productive in your time, because you're going to have so many ideas to chase and so many things to do to get your startup off the ground. How can you be very productive? Now, you can even get ideas like if you go to billion-dollar pitch decks, you can even find like some of these great companies like Facebook and Airbnb where they've uploaded their initial pitch deck. So you can find, it'll give you some confidence to say, even these billion-dollar companies didn't start with a very complicated pitch deck. If you look at their pitch decks, they're quite simple, like connecting people, how they'll make money. And so if I would encourage you to visit a website like Billion-Dollar Pitch Decks and just see like how these early companies, how they started their ideas and got them off the ground. This is another thing that a slide that I like. If you want to come to $1 billion idea, what I found is, most of these companies come from the US, right? Because the US economy is almost 25% of the world economy. So that means if you have an idea in the UK and the advantage is that we are English speaking, we can target people and customers in the US as well, right? So it's about 7-8 times the size of the UK economy, and you can target people from around the world for whatever your idea is. But this is a useful slide, and if you're watching these on as a replay, you can pause this and look at how big of the world market is a certain market, right? So So as I said, US is the biggest market. It has 330 million people earning, $63,000, and you can target those guys with your ideas from right here in UK. And there's more millionaires than you think. So if you have an idea and you don't know how to raise money for it, there are people that are looking to invest, right? So for instance, 15% of people that live in Switzerland are millionaires, right? 8.8% of people that live in the US are millionaires. And almost 5% of people that live in the UK are millionaires, right? So that means that you can, if you're ever taking a tube in the underground, it's crowded and packed, but at least 3 to 4 people inside that tube will be millionaires. And so what I also found is when I started raising money for companies, I was able to find people with wealth that were looking to invest because they want to invest in good ideas. They like to do something with that money. That money just sitting around can be quite boring, or not everyone just wants to invest in property. They want to get excited with ideas. So if you guys have good ideas, do take them out and don't think about that mindset that people don't have that money, or no one can afford to invest in my idea, or no one can afford to buy my products and services. Realize that there's a lot more people with a lot more money than you think out there. So there's a pyramid of wealth creation. At the bottom is low level skills. So this might be data entry jobs that people do. For instance, a Mechanical Turk is a website that does low level jobs, and this could be working at a McDonald's. In the middle is high level skills. So that might be working in a consulting company like KPMG or PwC, or a company that you might be working at. Now you can become a millionaire by working at these consulting companies or big companies. You can easily, the thing is, if you work for an Amazon or Ernst & Young, you can become a millionaire by just working in these big companies. But the real big wealth creation is when you create companies, right? If you can create the next Apple, the next Coca-Cola, etc. But the challenge with creating that brand and being in that top part of the circle of the pyramid is that's also the riskiest, right? So if you don't make it, you become very broke, right? So unless you can find investors that support your journey, that's the riskiest. But this is where real wealth is created, and a lot more wealth will be created over the next 10 years because people will be able to create their brands. And I know a lot of you on this call are doing side hustles, and this is great because you have the day job that supports your income and that de-risks it. But in the evenings, you're coming to events like this, or you're doing your weekends on creating that brand. Yeah. So you just have to go out and try, right? So if you're like we had Amina try out this idea. I hear a lot of people, they just keep their idea in their mind, and then they just say, yeah, I'll get around to it. But unless you prioritize it, unless you give it some momentum, it's not going to work, right? So the only way you'll know is if you go out and pursue that idea. And the thing that I can tell you is that not every idea is going to work, but it will lead to something, right? So once you start an idea, it might be that you reach out to 10 investors for that idea. You get zero funding for that. But then it could be that a year or 2 years down the line, you come up with a different idea, and then you end up pursuing the same 10 investors, and then 2 of them end up investing, right? So So don't think that anything is wasted. Even if you don't get somewhere with that idea, you'll learn something. You'll gain that experience. You'll build that network, and that's where it'll go. But if you give yourself a year to say, look, I'm going to take this seriously, I'm going to make it out of the rat race in a year, you can do it. You can get yourself out of it by doing it, but it might not look exactly as you had planned. It will look a bit different than what you had planned. Another tip that I got around this idea of bringing your business off the ground is called the career window. So if you draw a window like this, it has A, B, C, and D. And what happens is A is where you are now. So you might be in a job that you are not so happy with, and that you're not so comfortable with, and whatever, it might have some downsides. And D is where you ultimately want to become. Like that is your idea, taking that out to market. Now, a lot of times it's not easy for us to go from A to D, but what you can do is go from A to B, and then B to C, and then C to D, right? So that might mean that you change your job. So for instance, you're working in consulting and you want to start up a restaurant. What you might do is go from consulting in telecoms, for instance, to consulting in restaurants, and then work in a restaurant, and then ultimately run your own restaurant, right? So what that means is you might have to take a little bit of a salary cut. You might need to work longer hours, but if you take those routes, it will get you to your goal quicker. So just remember that you might have one or two stepping stones to go to before you can end up in your D career window. And now social media is a double-edged sword, right? So what I've learned over time is if you're going on LinkedIn and places, you're seeing everyone, saying that, this is great, my company's going great, and it can sometimes demotivate you as well, and say, I'm not pursuing my goals. So you just have to, and it can be a bit of a time suck. So just be aware that it does allow you to communicate to more people, but be aware of the time suck that social media can be in your vision. And you can end up just following other people and what they're doing rather than creating your own path and pursuing your own vision. Now, the other advice I would give is learn to plant seeds, right? So even, for instance, this talk, I spoke with Arfa about a year and a half ago and said I'd like to do a talk. And a year and a half later, it comes to reality with Zayed and Arfa inviting me to do it. So in that same regards, plant many seeds for people across, that could be for potential customers, for potential employees, for suppliers, and then they will take some time to grow, right? So that you're not just hungry for one customer or one client or one person. So just plant as many seeds as possible for your idea. A lot of people, they keep their idea very secretive. They don't want to tell anyone. But then if you don't tell anyone, then it doesn't have that seed that can be planted, right? So be comfortable in sharing it. Talk to people about it, and then it'll help you. It'll germinate and come to fruition later on. And just remember that output is determined. That value is determined by output, not input. So if I gave you a choice to dig two holes, would you use a shovel or a teaspoon? Well, you would say obviously a shovel, but if you're getting paid 1,000 pounds an hour, you might use a teaspoon. So just be aware that you as an entrepreneur are going to be doing value by numbers of holes dug, or the value that you're creating. And if you can do that faster, then the better it is, right? So a lot of times people are paying by the hour and they're getting slower service. But you need to be thinking about how you can save people as much time as possible and do it as quickly as possible. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of an exercise now, because I want to talk a bit about belief systems. And this is the mindset of bringing your ideas to market. Now, what happens with belief systems is this is the programming that you've given inside your head that says this is why you cannot make your idea happen. Yes? So I want you to write out, if you can take, if you're on the computer screen, if you only have a computer, then just, open up Microsoft Word or a notebook, or if you have a pen and paper, I just want to give you about 60 seconds, right, to write out what you think are the limiting beliefs that are stopping you from pursuing your idea. Feel free to take some of these. These are some of the common ones that I found over time, that you're too young, you're too old, too inexperienced, or too broke, wrong nationality, not educated enough, you're married with kids, etc. So I want you to list out, either you can repeat some of these or just list out, and I'm going to give you 60 seconds to think about this. Now, this is very important because this is some of the things that are stopping you from pursuing that idea, right? So let me give you 60 seconds. I'm going to take a break, and then we'll pick it up. And then if some of you are comfortable to share, that would be great as well. So do write it out, because it'll take some of these excuses from your unconscious mind to the conscious mind, right? So what are you telling yourself? What's the story? Okay, would anyone be comfortable in sharing? You can either put it on the chat, so on the chat, or you can use your mic. So good, you got age there, says Masum. Seems like no one has to be uni grad and young with friends in the same uni, like Facebook and Google founder. Is a mentor essential? I think it is. I don't think a mentor is essential. And a mentor doesn't necessarily mean someone that you have a formal relationship with. A mentor could be someone that you were reading their books, or listening to their podcast. So it could be that. So if you don't have someone that you can go to, it doesn't need to be an excuse for doing that. Aftab says no excuses. Sheila says chronic illness. Maya says not enough support from like-minded people. Abdul Latif says too broke, too inexperienced. So can you guys and not a techie person? So yeah, those are all valid things. But can you guys yourself see that these are excuses? Because like for instance, I'll just take the example of techie person, not a techie person. One of the first things I do when I work with clients and help them bring their software to market is to get over their belief that they're not techie enough to build software. Because when they start thinking that, then they start, when they are not using the software in a good way, they start thinking they're the dumb ones. Whereas when I tell them is that that means that the software wasn't designed well enough. You know, it's just a reframing, right? So those are all things. So not enough support from like-minded people. Now, Maya, like, you know, if you're coming to events like this, you're gonna meet like-minded people, and this is how you're gonna make your experience. Abdul Latif, the way you're gonna get experience is just to go out and do it. Then you'll learn the way you have to. I did a computer science degree, but it wasn't until I built my first proper software that I actually learned coding. And so when you actually go out and do it, you do it. Now, you know, if you're too inexperienced, I can tell you nobody knows what they're doing. They figure it out as they go along. You know, Mark Zuckerberg, he didn't have all the answers. He didn't know he was going to create Facebook and they would turn this big. No one knew, right? So you get that as you do that. Yes. So lacking experience, inappropriate art network, not enough like-minded people in investors. Yes. So I think if you've got those lack of people, you're gonna have to find and network, and if you see that is the thing, then you can do something about it. And Masoom says, I've been at it for 5 years as a non-techie and still struggling, failed 3 times and lost money, still trying again. And is it really lost money, or is it just an education, right? So you've gone there and you're gonna crack it. You're gonna crack it, and you just have to believe it and put in that thing, because that is like when I've lost money in business, I think of it as an education, right? So I always think, okay, now that is why I'm so much better person to be doing business with, because I've spent that money learning myself and educating myself. Yes. So the other thing that I can give you some advice on getting your ideas to market. Zachariah asked, what are some useful skills to pick up for the future, e.g. marketing, coding? Zachariah, like what I would say is everyone is unique, you know, and you cannot be an expert at everything, but you can be an expert in many things, all right? So it depends on which way you're inclined. If you hate coding, then don't go into coding, but instead team up with someone who is a coder and go into marketing. So I would say, you know, figure out what you enjoy doing, what you can be good at doing, and then you can either outsource and hire someone to do the rest, or if you don't have the money, then you can partner with them, right? And you can use, like one skill that I do recommend everyone learn is selling, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean selling in terms of you know, to a client, but you're always selling when you're doing a business as well, right? So when you are, like, I had to sell to these guys to trust me enough to let me speak at this event tonight, or you have to, like, when I first started a company, I thought that I would be the boss, and that was great. But what I realized is when you're the boss, you're actually selling to your employees all the time. So I have to sell people to work for me rather than someone else. And that's the same thing that you have to do as well, is to sell yourself, sell people. Everyone is selling something, as Zohair says. But you know, learn that skill alongside whatever skills you pick up. The other thing that I want to follow up the beliefs is, and I'm going to give you another 60 seconds for this, is mantras, right? This is something to put down, because we all get a bit down on ourselves sometimes, and we lose that belief, and we need to have a set of notes and one-liners that reprogram your mind to be the way that you want it to be, right? So mantras that I have put down is I can achieve anything I put my mind to. I can make anything happen. I am an awesome person that people love to be around. I have a great ability to speak, write, and teach. I add value to my friends, family, employees, and people that know me. Opportunities, wealth, and people come naturally and easily to me. I am a naturally lucky person. I learn things easily. I'm a positive role model. So write out some of your, I'm going to give you 30 seconds for this, but write out 1 or 2 one-liners that can put you in a more positive frame of mind for this thing. And if you're comfortable sharing it, share it in the group as well, please. So does anyone have any interesting, I'm capable and able to do anything? Yes. So imagine how much more you're able, I can come up with ideas. Yes, some people have this limiting beliefs that they're not smart enough to come up with ideas, or anything that they can come up with, everyone else can. So like, if you have that empowering belief that you can come up with ideas, you're much more likely to pursue it, right? Okay, someone wanted an access to my slides. If you email me, amir@amiranzur.com, I can send you a version of my slide. I'll just put the email here. So if you just email me and just put the word slides in your subject, I can send you a copy of the slides. That was by direct message. Sorry, I sent it. I didn't send it to everyone. Yeah, so just do that. Okay, so the other thing that I would go to, and I know this talk is a lot about mindset and belief, because that is what I believe will help you bring ideas to market. It's like there's plenty of stuff on how to generate ideas, but the real core essence of what I'm trying to teach you about bringing new ideas to market or making anything happen is about getting the right mindset. What people think about you is not important. What you think about yourself means everything. And that's it. You're gonna have the shortcomings. What's gonna happen when you come up with a new idea and you discuss it with your brother or your dad or your mom or your friend? They're gonna say to you, "Oh, that'll never work. Like 10 other people are doing it. What, you don't even know technology skills." So they're gonna potentially discourage you. Yes. So just be aware of that, because if you start listening to that, then you won't pursue the ideas, right? So just be aware there's going to be naysayers that when you start, they're going to come up to you and say, "You can't do it. Why you? Oh, so who do you think you are, Mr. Zuckerberg?" There's going to be a lot of discouraging talk. And it's important to be confident in yourself and your ability and do that. Yeah. So be confident in your ability. The other thing is things will go wrong. You know, I have spent days under the duvet going, "Oh shoot, like, you know, that idea didn't work. I got a lot of people excited about joining my company, hired them, paid them salaries, and then the idea didn't work and we had to let people go." or whatever it was, or like servers crashed when the client wasn't, when there was a big amount of traffic on the website. Things will go wrong. And you just have to realize that things go wrong with everyone. It's just that you start seeing other people's show reel, which is like their good side, and you see all the negative things in your side, which is like things that are going wrong. I've worked with the biggest companies in the world, and they have things going wrong all the time, right? So they pay a lot of people, smart people, a lot of money just to start fixing fires all the time. And problems are good. That's what's going to happen with you as well. Problems are going to come, but you just have to fix. You just have to fix them and get up every day out of bed. Force yourself. And some days it'll be a small thing like sending one email, and other days you can get a whole lot done. But don't be hard on yourself, and be like a good friend to yourself, because your mind is going to go through a lot of obstacles, especially in bringing new ideas to market. You know, if you are doing a secure day job where you know you're going to be earning, £5,000 at the end of the month, and everything is safe, you might not have as turbulent of a time. But if you are going in and pursuing your ideas, just realize you will have bad days, and you just have to get through it, and it's all temporary, and it's all in your mind. And when it does happen, one of the things that I found really powerful, a technique that someone's given, that I've read a lot about, is journaling, right? So if you can do this every morning, you get up, you write out your idea and what you're going to do to make that idea happen. So you can write out in that morning session. So I get up at 6 in the morning, so 6 till 6:30 or 6:45. What I do is journaling on that idea, on my actions for the day, or what's going to stop me, how I feel. It could be anything, but it's better if it's by hand paper. Here's a journal that I have. If I show you, it's just full of handwriting, and it's got notes on it. And what this does, it's a form of meditation and a form of counseling, everything done in one, because you're writing out your reality and what you can and cannot do. So this is another tip that I would give you. And now, one of the most powerful books that I read is called The Power of Story. And what it says is basically that we're all telling ourselves a story all the time, right? And we're telling ourselves a story of why we cannot make this idea happen and why we cannot be successful. Yes? And this is your old story, right? Whether it's your weight, your income level, or whatever it might be, you're telling yourself a story of what it was. Yes? And what I would encourage you to do is write out that story and take some time, just like hopefully if you start journaling, write out that story in one of those days that you take out and say why you are where you are today. Yes? And then scratch out that story and write yourself a proactive story of what the real truth is, right? So you might be telling yourself you're too broke to start an idea or a business, and you don't have the experience, and you don't have the network, and you're not finding the people, and you don't have the peer group to do this. But what I would do is encourage you to write out the positive story, to say, well, I'm broke, but I don't need much money to start up a business anymore because it's 2021 and things can be done digitally by meeting people virtually. And I can give people shares in my company if they want to join, right? So you can make it a more positive and empowering story. And the big thing I hope that you got out of my talk is how to get out of the prison of your mind, right? So the getting your ideas out is getting yourself out of the prison of your mind. And if you can get yourself out of the prison of your mind, you are going to be able to achieve anything, and you're going to be unstoppable, right? I'm not saying that it's going to happen overnight, and I'm not saying that it's not going to have its turbulence. But once you get out, once you realize that there's a prison of your mind and that you can get out of it, then hopefully I've given you some tips to get you there as well. Then you will be unstoppable and you will bring your ideas out to market. We are in the age of innovation. More and more ideas are coming out to market. And I believe that you can do it too. Now, I used to think, I've won the European Prize for Innovation. And I used to think, there's so much competition. Aren't like other people, isn't there a limit on number of innovations that can come to market? But then I realized, and I looked at the music industry. You know, music industry, a song is about 3 to 4 minutes long. Now think about how many millions of songs there are, right? In that 3 minutes, how many millions of people have created millions of unique ways of using up that 3 minutes, right? Different tunes, the beats can't copy each other. They're all unique. And so it's the same way, whether you're creating software or you're creating business, these are all going to be new ideas and innovations that you can bring once you get out of the prison of your mind. So thank you for listening to me, and thanks for staying till the end. And basically, if you do want to connect with me, you can find me anywhere by just Googling Amir Anzur. If you want to have what I do, one of my businesses now is we do help bring people who've got ideas. We help build their software and bring that to market. And if you wanted to discuss something along those lines with myself, feel free to email me, amir@amiranzur.com or calendly.com/Amir Anzur, where you can set up a free half-an-hour session and we can discuss your idea, and maybe I can just give you some ideas on how to get to your thing faster. And now I got a few private messages for a copy of the slides. So if you email me, amir@amiranzur.com, and with the subject slides, I'll also send you a copy of these slides. So thank you for that and listening to me. And hopefully that's been useful, and I'm free to take on any questions or any, if you want to discuss any ideas.
Yeah, thank you very much, Amir, for that. Very insightful. If anyone has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat and I'll put them to Amir, or you can turn on your mic and ask them. If you're a bit shy and you don't want to speak over anyone, press the reactions button on your Zoom app and it will let you raise your hand, and I'll call you out to ask your question. So if anyone has any questions, I'll give you the next minute or so to type them up or speak up. We have a question from Maya. It's, what advice can you give to help find a business model that fits?
Well, my first advice would be find, they say start with a minimum viable product and then a minimal lovable product, right? So first find what people would love to use, right? So then will they use it for free? Once you know that it's a product that people love, then you can find many business models. So what I do is I typically find competitors and see what they are doing in terms of, whether it's a freemium model, whatever model that is doing it. And then I put those all in one sort of document to say, company X is doing this, company Y is doing this, company Z is doing this. And then I also find ideas from other businesses, right? That can work. So what does Facebook do? What does Airbnb do? What do others do? So that I can get that idea. So it's not easy for me to say what business model that fits, but I think then you just have to experiment on that. So just find the ones that are that your competitors are doing, and then you can usually improve on that, right? So they've usually spent time finessing their business model, and you can find better things to do on that.
Thank you. Any other questions? We have one, and it's, what was your biggest hurdle on your journey so far, and how did you overcome it?
For me, it was the for me, it was this slide here, being under the duvet cover, and being like, I can't get, I failed, right? Like I've wasted many, I'm not even gonna say days, weeks, I'm gonna say months and years in self-doubt, right? And thinking that I was a failure or something didn't work, or no, it can't work. And I just stopped too quickly, and I wasted a lot of time doing that. So what I found is, when I had that faith in myself, I was able to run. But when I had these doubts and a lot of people telling me it can't be done, or like you don't know what you're doing, or it's not possible, that's what stopped me. So I think that was the biggest hurdles I faced. They were all internal. And then if you notice, when I did this presentation today, a lot of it was out of getting out of the prison of your mind. So and maybe I'm unique, but I think that a lot of people will go through those hurdles when they go through it. And if you can get out of it and have a positive mindset, and have that faith in yourself, look, you know, worst case scenario, you move back to your parents' place, you know, or you go broke and the government gives you benefits, you know. So there's like, even the worst case scenarios aren't as bad as you think they'll be. Yeah. And is that okay? And then Masoom asks, at what stage funders should be sought? Look, funders, what I found is, like, every funder is different. Yes. So you have venture capitalists that are that probably are a bit later on, but you have angel investors that can be sought like even before you have a pitch deck, right? So you can depends on your situation, like what kind of where you're at. Some people want to be involved right at the very beginning, you know, when you're in a coffee shop and you have an idea, and they'll fund money to you, right? So like so there's no right or wrong, but you can involve them, and a lot of them you can involve in a very early stage, even if you don't need the money, but you can go back to them, you know, a few months or years later when you're more mature with your idea to go with it. But there's no right answer, and depends on your cash flow situation, because a lot of investors will bring in not just funds, but they'll open up a lot of doors and they'll really accelerate your idea. But then on the other hand, having an investor could also feel like having a boss, right? Because then you're doing things to make sure that the funding keeps coming, and you have to report to someone. So everyone is different again, and it depends on your situation.
Thank you. And one more. For people to work together, they need to know each other well, trust each other well, with a good ethical framework. What do you advise groups such as these to create such bubbles of creativity and safety?
I think you just have to start working together and build trust with each other, right? So what I have learned is it's about building teams and about building trust. And that's gonna come with time. And, you know, not like, sometimes you'll have, you'll all have your own strengths and weaknesses that you will bring to the table. But the more you can trust each other, the faster you'll grow, right? So a lot of my businesses, we have completely different skill sets that we're bringing, but we trust each other to deliver. So you will have to do the same. Is just start working and coach each other. Don't be thinking I'm going to leave this partner or don't be thinking about the divorce right from the beginning. You know, think about how you can help each other succeed and teach each other.
Brilliant. We have a question from Amina. She's raised her hand. Amina, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah. I just wanted to ask you. You mentioned before about sometimes going through trials like with other people when it comes to like maybe you had an idea and then you had to like lay off people. In terms of like working with other people, how did you deal with these kind of problems? I hope my question makes sense.
Sorry, what do you mean, like in terms of laying off people?
No, like in terms of like in the early stages, working with other people or like hiring other people, and then maybe a problem arises, or how do you kind of communicate this, and how do you kind of get over that problem?
I think just being straight and upfront, you know, like just do it the way you want to be treated, and I treat everyone like a client. So whether they're paying me or it's staff member that I've hired as an intern, everyone is a client to me. And so and if you're honest, like sometimes, you know, things don't work out, right? So you like, I let them know why it's not working. And a lot of times even when I've had to let people go because their performance wasn't well, I do it in a good way so that we part on good terms, and you don't burn bridges, right? Like it's a small world in the startup world. You don't want to have people that leave your company for whatever reason. You might have had to lay them off, and then they go badmouth it to 10 other people because they say, oh, this guy wasn't a great guy to work with. You know, you want to be leaving a good impression, even with people that it didn't work out well with. So I've had investors that have invested in my a business and it didn't work out well, but we still are in good terms, and then they chose to invest in other things with me, right? And so like so you can keep people happy even when things don't work out well. And you know, like I used to be like very like, oh, we're gonna create the next $1 billion idea, it's gonna work overnight. And now I'm like, look, I get it, like after that conversation, because I get excited, and then I say, look, but the reality is it takes a long time, it might not work, are you still on board, right? So I let them, I premise that things could go wrong and all these things, right? So that experience comes in. Yeah.
Cool. And we have one more question. It's, what was it that won over your major clients to work with you?
I think it's trust. So trust is a major thing, right? So if you can build trust, you can do it. So when I first started my company, when I had 0 clients, I said that, oh, I just left Accenture, which I used to work at, which is a big consulting company. And I used those client names as a foot in the door with new customers. Now, the first couple of clients, they like people, if they trust you, you can be upfront like with them. If they like you, they know you, they trust you, they will do business with you, right? And so like sometimes there was one product that I was charging about £5,000 for this piece of software, and you could go on Google and find it for £200, right? And I was like, why would anyone pay £5,000 for my software? But what I found is because I was going to the client, I was sitting down with them face to face, I had a different cost structure than those people just selling on the internet. And so those people would trust me more and go with me, right? So if you know me, for instance, there's people on the call now. If you know me, and now you're looking to create software, you might come to me and say, let's have a chat, and from there we could potentially do business together, right? So what am I trying to do? I'm trying to build trust, and that's the biggest advice I can get you if you're trying to get clients, is just get them trust, like get them to like you. And people like to do business with people that they like, right? So if they like you, they'll do business with you.
Brilliant. Totally agree. I think trust is very important in business as well. Before we wrap up, if anyone enjoyed today's event, just to let you know, this is actually a part of a series of events called Startup Series, where we're going to go through the different stages of startups and businesses, and follow the journey of Muslim entrepreneurs and how they found success in the business world. We will have another event later this month. So if you're interested, if you enjoyed this event and you're interested in attending another one, do look out for an announcement, either in our newsletter or on our Instagram page or on our Twitter page, or if you're on our Slack channel, there'll be an announcement there as well. If you're interested in sharing your story and speaking at a future event, please do get in touch. Either visit our website and hit the contact button, or email us directly at team@muslamicmakers.com and let us know if you'd like to speak at a future event, and we'd love to have you. Before we wrap things up, I'll see if there's any interest for any breakout rooms. For those who haven't done breakout rooms before, we basically split the Zoom call into several smaller rooms, smaller groups where you can speak with each other and ask any questions, discuss, and perhaps even talk about any early stage ideas you're already thinking about. So I'll give everyone a chance to leave if they're not interested. But thank you very much for joining us this evening. Amir, thank you so much for your time and sharing your insight and giving us such a great talk. It was of great benefit to myself, and I'm sure to everyone else in the audience as well. Thanks for being here. And if anyone does want to stay for the breakout rooms, please do. Otherwise, I'll give you about a minute or so to leave. Thank you very much, and Assalamu alaikum.